Everyone knows that in football, players often dive and fake injuries. These days, you can't even breathe near the players. But it wasn't always like this. In the early days of football, there was allowed brutal contact, even with goalkeepers. You could push, kick, and even knock them unconscious. This aggressive brand of football was played during the World Wars, leading to an extremely physical game and a chaotic atmosphere among the fans. This often resulted in goalkeepers being hospitalized. Fortunately, everyone was relieved when the rules changed in the mid-1900s. People are usually impressed with my knowledge of football, so today I've got some football facts that you probably didn't know about. Let's get into it. If I asked you who the best player in the world is right now, you might answer Kylian Mbappe. But did you know the 25-year-old world champion has never scored a free kick? Sounds impossible, but it's true, and it's blowing my mind. At 25, Pele had already scored 26 free kicks. There are levels to this. Unlike Mbappe, Rogério Ceni knows how to score free kicks. He has scored 61 goals from free kicks and 69 from penalties. Nice. But the weird thing is, Rogério Ceni is a goalkeeper. Rogério is such a prolific goalscorer that he has more career goals than the masterful Zinedine Zidane. Once again, my mind is about to explode trying to process this information. Now, most people have heard about Mourinho's record of 9 years without losing a single game when played at home, but I want to give some perspective on how incredible that record really is. Think about Bayern Munich's impressive winning streak. They went on a 23-game tear in the 2019-2020 season. That team doesn't get enough credit. Leverkusen just pulled off something crazy this season, going 51 games unbeaten out of 52 in all competitions. Ironically, their only loss came in the Europa League final, the game that mattered most. In the Premier League, Arsene Wenger's Arsenal squad went on a tremendous 49-game unbeaten run from 2003 to 2004. Then, you've got AC Milan with the all-time league record, going 58 games without losing from 1991 to 1993. They were practically invincible. Pep Guardiola's got his own streak going at Man City with 42 straight unbeaten home games. And Jurgen Klopp, the man went 68 straight home games at Anfield without taking a defeat, over 4 years. That's dominance. And then, on another complete universe, there's Mourinho's mind-boggling record of 150 home games without losing from 2002 to 2011. 107 different teams failed to beat him across 150 different matches. This is why his nickname is the Special One. This record will never be broken.
I think I'm a special one.
But no one was better at parking the bus than AC Milan. It was 1994 and Fabio Capello's AC Milan was one of the greatest teams in the world. But the Italians prided themselves on their defensive consistency rather than attack. Not surprising when they had Maldini and Baresi at the back. In 297 games that those two played together, AC Milan kept on 141 clean sheets. On top of the two, Capello went there and got Marcel Desailly. He was an incredible defender. He actually played in defensive midfield in front of this already incredible defense. They only conceded 15 goals in the league that season. To be honest, I'm surprised they conceded even one. Milan went on to win the Champions League that year, only letting in 2 goals during that competition too. They've smashed young Johan Cruyff's Barcelona 4-0 in the finals. AC Milan was an incredible team that epitomized Italian football in the 90s. Switching focus to the more controversial side of football, Sergio Ramos was a great player who may get his own video at some point, but he also had a temper and a legendary one at that. Ramos has the most ejections in football's top 5 league history with 28, so Ramos missed an entire season's worth of games due to red card 1 game suspensions. He was a little crazy, but he still is my favorite center back though. And now for a truly bizarre statistic. Back in 2003, Sunderland was playing against Charlton. 24th minute, Stephen Wright scored one of the most comical own goals you will ever see. Only 4 minutes later, and Sunderland was at it again. Thomas Sorensen made a decent save before Michael Proctor decided to bag it into the bottom corner of his own net. 2 own goals in 4 minutes. You would think it can't get worse. But just 3 minutes later, the most ridiculous hat-trick in Premier League history was completed. Charlton corner, Proctor turned the ball into his own net. Again, 3 own goals in 7 minutes. This means he actually stands at third in the quickest hat-tricks in Premier League history, only behind Sadio Mane, who did it for Southampton in 2 minutes and 56 seconds, and Robbie Fowler, who did it for Liverpool in 4 minutes and 33 seconds. This is really one record most players would prefer not to hold. A lot of people say that Ronaldo is the all-time top scorer in the Champions League because of his longevity, but consider this: out of the 10 highest goal-scoring seasons of all time, Cristiano Ronaldo has 5 of them, and that's crazy. However, Ronaldo needed 2,000 minutes before he scored his first Champions League goal. Meanwhile, Erling Haaland, with the same 2,000 minutes played in the Champions League, had already scored 35 goals. At this rate, Haaland will beat Ronaldo's record by the time he's 30 years old, meaning Haaland is on track to outscore Tottenham's entire European history in just a decade. Cristiano Ronaldo, also known as Mr. Champions League, is known for his selfishness. He can't create and he never passes the ball, people claim. But Ronaldo is not only the best goal scorer in the competition, he is also the best creator since he holds the record for the most assists made in the European competition. You probably were not expecting Ronaldo to be the best assist maker in European history. Unfortunately, that record will probably be broken by Di Maria if he chooses to stay at Benfica for another season. The Argentinian is only 3 assists away from matching Ronaldo. Speaking of Di Maria, a weird statistic about him blew up on social media. This statistic showed that he only scored with his left foot, but preferred to assist with his right foot. Left foot to shoot, right to assist. It seems odd at first glance, but it's because when you play on the right wing, you shoot with your left foot and cross with your right, correct? But contrary to that, you have Dembele, who is also a left-footed right winger, who has scored 24 goals with his left foot and 29 goals with his right foot. So, Dembele has scored most of his goals with his weaker foot. Maybe he doesn't know which foot is his strongest one. That would explain a lot, to be honest. Every football fan knows how bananas Maradona was. But did you know that in Maradona's last game for Barcelona, he knocked out an opponent with a flying knee? It was 1983, and Barcelona was playing Athletic Bilbao. Andoni, Athletic's centre-back, broke a young Maradona's ankle, leaving Maradona out on recovery for 9 months. That gave the Argentinian plenty of time to think as he plotted his revenge on the Butcher of Bilbao. 1 year later, in the final of the Copa del Rey in 1984, Maradona would get his chance to pay back. Bilbao took the lead in the 13th minute through Endika with a well-taken finish. And the pace of the game just never slowed. It was more rugby than football. Barcelona failed to get an equalizer, and things turned immediately sour. Maradona saw red. He failed to get revenge. His first victim was Miguel Sola. He was knocked out with a flying knee in the face, leaving Miguel on the turf unconscious. All hell broke loose. Maradona started kung fu kicking anything in red and white, while Athletic players interrupted their celebrations to retaliate. They had a riot, and the police had to be called in, and that was the end for Maradona and Barcelona. That's one hell of a way to leave a club. That's also how most people picture quitting their jobs. If this next statistic doesn't blow your mind, then I don't know what will. We talk a lot about how Neymar wasted his talent, and the lack of success of PSG with Messi, Mbappe and Neymar mostly falls on him. But what if I said that he was not only the hardest pressing forward for PSG, but he was also the best pressing forward on the planet? You wouldn't believe me. You would think I'm crazy and I belong in an insane asylum. But the fact is, the forward with the most tackles and interceptions per 90 is Neymar, ahead of Salah, Suarez, Benzema and Mbappe. The numbers don't lie. Has your mind been blown yet? Let's move on. Did you know that a goalkeeper once saved all 4 penalties that he faced in a Champions League final? With the English clubs banned from competing, Steaua Bucharest sensed an opportunity, but Barcelona awaited them in the 1986 final. Played in Sevilla, it was like a home game for the Catalan Giants. Bucharest had everything against them, but Terry Venables' Barcelona had an off night. Failing to break the deadlock, the game went to penalties. Step up Helmut Dukadam. Alexanko went to Dukadam's right, saved Leaning into the mind games, Dukadam went the same way for Pedraza. Saved when Pichi stepped up, it was a game of cat and mouse. Would he go the same way again? Pichi didn't think so. Saved. And finally, when Marcus went the other way, so did Dukadam. 4 penalties were saved in a row. Steaua Bucharest was the first club from behind the Iron Curtain to win the European Cup. That man deserves a statue in Bucharest. Erling Haaland has redefined the hat-trick stat line that was once a rarity but has now become a common occurrence for him. In fact, in his first 38 games, Erling Haaland broke the all-time Premier League record for hat-tricks in a single season, possibly the quickest a player has ever broken a Premier League record. In doing so, he smashed the previous record for the fewest games needed to score 5 Premier League hat-tricks, previously held by Ruud van Nistelrooy, who needed 73 games. In just 5 seasons, Haaland racked up 20 hat-tricks, which means in 1/4 of his career, Haaland notched more hat-tricks than all of these players had in their entire career. His playstyle is ugly as hell, but who am I to judge? The ball is going in. Here's an interesting fact that shows how football has changed. The value of playing at home has been steadily declining over the years. The home team is winning far less often than they used to. At its peak in 1895-96, home teams won 64.6% of their games. That means the average football home team was playing at the level of a Big Six team. Throughout the 2000s, the average was around 49.2%, and in the last few seasons, the home team's average win percentage has been closer to 40%. But home advantage does still exist. To be precise, home advantage boosts your winning odds by 15.9% in the Premier League. That's way more significant than I ever imagined. And now, for the wildest fact of them all. Once, an English team had to clinch a 7-0 victory to secure promotion, and incredibly, they pulled it off. They hadn't even been in the running for promotion all season, and Bristol Rovers went into the final game of the season having to better Northampton Town's result by 5 goals. Northampton went 3-0 up in the first half against Barrow, and it obviously looked like it was game over. Barrow did pull one back, and Joey Barton's Bristol Rovers knew what they had to do to get promoted to League One. Score 7 goals in a fixture for the first time since 1964 and don't concede. They were up 3-0 with just 60 minutes left on the clock. Things were looking good, but it wasn't looking very likely. Nevertheless, they relentlessly bombarded the Scunthorpe goalie, unleashing a staggering 34 shots. In the 61st minute, the goals started flowing. 4-0, 76th minute, 5-0, 79th minute, 6-0, and unbelievably in the 85th minute, Elton Anderson scored a towering header to make it 7-0. Every person in the Memorial Stadium lost their minds. The pitch got stormed. The flares were sent off. It was a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Joey Barton had to get on the mic and plead with the crowd to get off the pitch as the referee was threatening to cancel the game. Eventually, they managed to restart the match, and after 18 minutes of injury time, Bristol Rovers had achieved the impossible. So remember, for whatever you do in life, no matter how unlikely it may seem, there's always a chance.